Hey, good Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome into the Volquest podcast. I'm Eric Kane alongside Austin Price, Grant Ramey, and Brent Hubbs. Busy times here at Volquest.com. Tennessee football has exited spring practice on to the next phase of the offseason. The orange and white game has come and gone, but not a whole lot to talk about it anyway, but that is certainly not the story. We are now, 4 or 5 days post the Nico Iamaleava era at Tennessee as, things really picked up steam over the weekend. No showing for a Friday morning practice. Was not there at the orange and white game. Josh Heupel has moved on. And for the team, Brent, they're moving on. They got to find a quarterback and all that. But obviously the story about Nico Iamaleava is still very much circulating amongst fans and media alike.
Well, and again, it's not going to go away. That discussion is going to continue for – we're going to be talking about – Nico's going to come back up as a topic of conversation in August. And every early game broadcast, every TV commentator is going to come on and talk about this new unexpected era at Tennessee because Nico is not there. So it's not going to go away. For Josh Heupel and his staff, it has to go away because it's time to move on. They got to go find a quarterback. And I think that's the two hats, Grant, if you will. The fans and the media can talk about the Nico side of things for as long as they want to. For Josh Heupel, it has to be, the old snap and clear. You're moving on because you've got to find a quarterback really quick, and you got to make sure your roster stays intact. You have to be very mindful of a lot of things here over the next 2 weeks with the portal activity that's going to take place.
I was impressed with Heupel Saturday with the way it was so cut and dry. Like he was talking about Friday afternoon, they met as a staff and they started talking about like what's the options moving forward, like where do we go from here? And it wasn't it didn't sound like at least a bunch of going back and forth about what they're about to do. It was no, we got to move on and we're going to do this and we're going to have these quarterbacks and maybe they go to the portal or whatever to get another quarterback. But I was impressed with that and how it's just so. Like somebody's asking me how crazy of a week it's been. It hasn't really been that crazy because it's been cut and dry. Like he wanted more money. He didn't get it. He wasn't at practice. So they moved on. We've had much crazier weeks over the last, 10 to 15 years covering Tennessee athletics. But just the decisiveness, I thought, helps Tennessee move forward quickly and the way Heupel handled it. I don't know. Austin probably has more details and all the gory stuff about how it happened and how it played out. But just the decisiveness with how it happened and how quickly they were moving on. Less than 24 hours later.
Well, I think they had to. You could easily say Nico made the decision by not coming to practice on Friday morning or Nico's camp. But once he wasn't there and they picked up the phone and he never answered, it was done. And, Tennessee had to move on. At that point, like if you're not showing up for practice, then, there are just certain things you just don't do. Like it'd be different if he had the flu or stomach bug or whatever. But that wasn't the case here. And, they made the decision sometime late Thursday night. Unless it was a well-orchestrated plan, you were at Joey Halsley's house playing with Joey Halsley's kids and the other quarterbacks Friday night around 9. And then by the next morning, 10 hours later, you weren't in the facility getting ready for Fast Friday or whatever they call their kind of walkthrough thing before the game. And it was done. So, at some point, they made the decision, after the Coach Halsley, quarterback dinner to go in a different direction.
I think, like right now, again, as we enter a new week, and it's still like it's almost like the fan base is kind of in unison here about how Josh Heupel handled things. I don't want to play the entire opening, clip, but he says essentially, nobody's bigger than the power T. We will have a quarterback that's going to go and win some games. I know you guys had an extended 10-minute drill, essentially, after the orange and white game, and you guys kind of talked about this. I thought he did a phenomenal job on Saturday. I thought the players did a phenomenal job. But one clip I do want to play and we can discuss here, it's talking about how the team's just got to grow together. It's got to come together. If something like this is going to happen, the Band-Aid's got to be ripped off, and how he's lost quarterbacks before. He's dealt with things like this before, and he's got confidence in himself to go find a quarterback, coach a quarterback up, and have this team ready to roll come August. Here's Josh Heupel from Saturday discussing more on Nico Iamaleava.
If it's going to happen, rip the Band-Aid too. At the end of the day, we got a lot of great work for the two guys that are here, and we got a chance to move forward as a program. So it's unfortunate. just in the landscape of college football that this happens at this point. But, I told our coaches yesterday afternoon when we had a staff meeting, I said, if it's going to happen, and sometimes it happens through injury, game 5, game 6. I've had it in my career where I lost starting quarterback before we started training camp, the day of the start of training camp. And at the end of the day, this is the greatest team game there is. That group where we lost them on day 1, they rallied together. Adversity, when it strikes, you got 2 choices. It can bring you together or divide you. That group came together and ultimately went on and won a conference championship that year. And this group inside of that locker room, they're tough, they're competitive, they care about each other, and we got to grow together.
That's Josh Heupel on Saturday saying that the team's got to move on, team's got to grow together, and he's got experience in losing quarterbacks in the past. He made it abundantly clear, Brent, that they've got to go get a quarterback. 2 scholarship quarterbacks is not enough. The transfer portal opens tomorrow. We'll see who all jumps in that. We'll see, whatever guy they get, if he can come in and compete for a starting job, if he's just a depth piece, whatever. They've got to add a guy. But again, I thought those comments, his comments overall on Saturday were pretty phenomenal considering the circumstances, and I thought he handled it the right way.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give a shout out to Bill Martin, who's his PR SID guy. I mean, Josh was prepared. He knew what he wanted to say. He was comfortable. He didn't stumble around it. I thought in that clip, Grant, is what you were talking about. It was matter of fact. It wasn't word salad. He was kind of looking into the lens to the fans, if you will, conveying this is our thought process from Friday moving forward. We're going to go win. I think Josh Heupel's probably at his best with the media. I think he's probably at his best with his team. When he's got an edge about him, when he's a little hacked off, when he's a little bit motivated. I think this is why he loves big games better than he loves the payday games, which are just, you go get better, whatever. He likes that competitiveness, and I think he feels challenged. Okay, all right, this is how it's going to be. I'm a winner. I'll go win. We'll find a way to go win. And I think that was his message to the fans, and I think that's why it was such a winning day for him. And I hate to say winning day because I don't know that anybody won, but it was a really good job of directing the narrative, which I thought Tennessee had to do on Saturday, Grant.
It was a good job of weathering the storm. I think the players followed that up as well. Kitzelman, who was it else? Arian Carter, the 2 quarterbacks. There's a lot of references to guys that want to be here and guys that, give their all for Tennessee and all this stuff. And it's going to be hard to replace, obviously, Nico talent-wise because of how much raw talent he has to play the quarterback position and why he was rated as highly as he was and got the money that he got. But I do agree with Hype that this can bring a team together and can be a rallying point for the guys that want to be here. The guys in the locker room are the guys that want to be here, and they'll find somebody at quarterback out of the portal that can help them one way or the other, and then you kind of go from there. But I do think the way they've handled it, and I agree that when he's got that edge to him, he's different. And when he's kind of a little bit of a back against the wall, I think he's different. And I think it can change a locker room. I mean, this is something that, we thought about in December. What's Nico going to do? And we were everybody's kind of waiting on an answer, and then it just kind of settled. And he was here through the spring. But now, if it's over, when it's over with, you don't really have to, go down that road anymore or think about it anymore. So I do think it can be a rallying cry for the Sponge.
Austin, I think it's going to be really fascinating to see, one, who's interested, and 2, how Josh Heupel and his staff go about finding out if the guy's the right fit. Because I think this is different than somebody coming in January, because you got 130-something days before you go play. That is a short window to win over a locker room. That is a short window to learn your offense. That is a short window to try to go be the guy. And if you're going to go pay some real money for a guy, the assumption that is that he's going to be the man the moment he walks into the room. And I don't think that's the narrative. I don't think that's the culture Josh Heupel wants in his locker room. So finding someone in this portal window is going to be really interesting to watch, because we don't have a lot of history of this, of guys going this late in the period and finding their next quarterback, if you will. It's happened some around the country, but it's not commonplace.
It's not. And I was on WJOX in Birmingham on Monday, and I asked Greg McElroy, I said, Greg, you played the position. How hard is it to show up in May and learn a new offense, especially if you've not been a part of something similar? And this one's a different type of offense, and have success. And he goes, I look at Joe Burrow. He goes, look at Joe Burrow in year one at LSU, arrived in May, won the job, versus year two. He goes, it was a drastically different player. And, so I mean, like, it will be interesting to kind of see what they do. Does Merklinger, because his year in the system, just make it too hard to overcome for somebody else? I don't know. I think a lot of it depends on who has interest in the job. Who's going to reach out to Tennessee, in the agent world that says, backcourt, my guy, he'd like to come be at Tennessee and be that thing. Because Tennessee has got an open job, so to speak, at the quarterback position, and there's going to be interest there.
Let me ask you guys this. A lot of fans have been speculating. A lot of fans have been wondering, where is Gaston Moore? What is Gaston Moore doing? Could Gaston Moore get a call to say, hey, just come back and join this room? Not saying he's going to be like keys to the car here to go and be the starting quarterback, but could Gaston Moore get a call to come back?
Well, I think, Brent, depending on who is available, I think that's a possibility. Obviously, Gaston Moore's not anywhere right now. And, does he even want to go through another 6-month deal? It will be interesting to kind of, see what Tennessee does. I don't think he's coming back to be the starter, but would he come in to be a depth piece, to be behind Merklinger, to kind of be that cushion between redshirt freshman and true freshman, like he was a year ago between Nico and Jake? I think it's possible. Let's face it. Tennessee's going to have some NIL funds. Hey, Gaston, you get a couple $100,000 to come, be the insurance policy. It's probably better than whatever else he's got going on right now.
That's my thought process. I'm sorry. It's what are you making this year? Okay, let me triple that. Just come over here and hang out. Like, it's more than that. I get it.
You're only going to be here like what, 6 months?
Yeah.
7 months. If that was the case, again, I don't think that'll be the right route they go. But I don't think it's the worst idea in the world.
Yeah, that's just something I thought about, Brent. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any. I think this is, and here's going to be this is going to be the hard part for fans. I think through the next couple of weeks, and Grant, Austin, Eric, you guys may disagree with this. I think everybody's going to be looking for a unicorn. They're going to be looking for who's the $3 million man who so desperately wants to be at Tennessee that he's willing to leave his Big 12 school, or he's willing to leave a Big 10 school, or wherever he's going to leave Conference USA and come here, and they've gone out and got a guy who's a proven commodity, and wow, okay, now you're projected to win 10 wins, to be back in the playoff, and all those types of things. How many of those guys? I think there'll be some guys in that realm of conversation who their agent expressed some interest. But how does that work? How does that fit? How realistic is that? Also, how many of those guys want to leave their current situation? Because they're betting. It's a high risk game. Yeah, you get paid, but it's a high risk game of thinking you're going to learn this and figure this thing out versus, hey, I was on a team that, played in a conference championship game, or we were close to being where we are, and we think we can be that point now. I don't know that the movement from a big name thing is going to be this absolute, like a lot of fans think it's going to be. And I know where fans come from there. I'm just not sure that there's going to be that much willingness to move at this point in the year. December had been a total different conversation. Now, I don't know. It's a risky move for a quarterback who's established somewhere to come and try to win this thing over and go from there, I think.
I completely agree. Again, it's, you're playing college football because you love the game. It's always been a dream and everything. But ultimately, you want to get to the National Football League and make real money. And if you are a starting quarterback at a Power 4 that obviously you can't go SEC to SEC, as you pointed out, what a risk that's taking. Likely you're probably in a contract year, maybe not, But I mean, what a risk you're taking to uproot where you are now, come to Knoxville, and do all those things we discussed. Learn the offense in a short amount of time, win the job, win over the locker room. Again, the Joe Burrow from year 1 to year 2. That's a huge risk. So surely, there's going to be some that jump in potentially, but I mean, I'm with you. That'd be a big time risk for said player to do that. Not saying it won't happen, but that'd be a big time risk. Even though, I mean, they'd be well compensated to come to Tennessee.
Well, Grant, Joe Milton made a move, but Joe Milton was a backup. He wasn't going to be the starter at the place he was at. And I think you can find a backup who's at a Power 4 school that would have some interest for the right amount of money. But that's not a proven commodity. I mean, there's the reason he's a backup where he's at. Not saying he's not talented, and maybe he's just looking for an opportunity, but he hasn't won the job where he's been at. So how safe is it to take one of those guys? I mean, Burrow was not a starter when he left Ohio State.
Right.
He lost the job. That's why he left, right?
I mean, I think the timing hurts everybody. I think it hurts Nico because you should have handled this business in December. If you wanted a full offseason with wherever you're going to land next, if you didn't think you're going to be at Tennessee, I think it hurts Tennessee because the December window is a completely different beast from the spring window. I mean, it's just two different, one's full on free agency and one feels much more limited, less moves, all that stuff. Maybe I'm crazy thinking that, and it's going to be full on insanity like every other portal December window. But just the timing of it, I don't know. You got to see who enters and what the situations are like, and I don't know what the expectations should be. But because of the timing, it feels like the expectations. It's going to be tough to get, the guy that can step in and be, what the fans want him to be from day one.
So let me ask you this, Austin. We've been accused of knowing this is going to happen all the time because of all the Merklinger talk this spring. He's had a great spring, man. He really has. I mean, Brent's written about him. We talked about the mechanics, just being out there and seeing him with our eyes, we can tell that he's improved. I mean, you can't really take anything from the orange and white game. That was nothing but a glorified practice the other day. If it is Jake Merklinger, and I mean, obviously he's QB1 on the roster right now. He's the most experienced, albeit hardly any. What has he done that's put himself in position to find success? What would this Tennessee team look like next year with Jake Merklinger QB1?
I just think he's continued to develop. I mean, they kind of tore him down and built him back up mechanically. Last year, kind of where George is at right now, right? I mean, George flashes, but then George will have those moments just because he's working on, hand placement and how you hold the football and, footwork and all those things that quarterback coaches love to tweak when a kid's coming from high school to college. And so for Jake, I mean, he's just a year further in. It's like making swing changes in golf. Like at first you're going to struggle a little bit. A year in, all of a sudden things start to click. And I think it started to click for him this spring. And, he had a really nice spring. I said it on the board the other day. I've said it on the radio a couple of times. I've had multiple people that attend to practice, whether it be, former players, high school coaches that said, man, Nico's good, but like Jake Merklinger it looks really, really good, just as good as Nico. And those people were saying that before any of this happened. Right. So, I mean, like, that's not saying that he was going to beat out Nico. I don't think that was going to be the case. I think Nico was set up to have a really good year. I'm just saying that Tennessee felt really good about, like, okay, if what happened against Mississippi State last year happened again against anybody else, we'd feel really comfortable with the steps Jake has made going into the football game and not missing a beat.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is there's, 11 other games outside of Mississippi State. So, like, if this was the thing, Brent, what gives you? What are the? And we might not know yet because we haven't seen him play. I mean, I get that. What are the strengths of a Jake Merklinger?
Well, I mean, listen, I think it's going to be a competition between the two of them. I'm not ready. I'm not ready to cast George into he's shelved for a year as a red shirt. He would have redshirted, but now where do both of these guys go from today? I think where does this team go from this weekend? Look, it was easy. A bunch of guys were pissed off on Friday. Okay, they were still mad on Saturday. It was very evident Miles Kitselman was hot and still hot. The question now is when you get a few days and weeks removed from that and it settles into the reality, who puts in the work that needs to be done to get a guy ready? Okay, for a guy to get himself ready. I mean, this is I mean, Joey Halsley has got to work overtime and just guys hanging out in his office, these quarterbacks hanging out in his office, figuring out what they can do. George has got to eat more protein shakes and more peanut butter than he's ever had in his life, because if he's going to compete, he needs another 15 to 20 pounds to protect himself in there.
Yep.
I think Merklinger is processing it pretty well. Okay. And I think he's making decisions. I don't put a whole lot of stock in anything we saw on Saturday because that's so vanilla. But yeah, I mean, I think there's some promise there, but I don't think this is well, he was as good as Nico was in spring. And I know, Austin, you're not saying this. He was as good, so they're not going to miss a beat. I think that's foolish. I think that's unrealistic here. I think the question is, how much do you adapt offensively, what you can do? What do you tailor it around these guys if it's going to be these two? You add in another person in the mix, we'll see. I mean, this is going to be a very different summer for Joey Halsley and Josh Heupel than they thought it was going to be 5 days ago, Grant. I mean, we're in quarterback boot camp starting now until you get to fall camp in terms of in the office, film room, trying to get guys ready. It's going to feel a lot like year one for those guys when it was Joe Milton and Hendon Hooker trying to figure out and learn this offense.
Why do you say that? What do you think changed that makes it a busier summer for Joey? I mean, yeah, it does kind of have 2021 vibes in terms of just open competition, trying to figure this thing out. Everybody's going to be asking about it all through fall camp, and we're going to get a million different versions of the same answer. And it's going to be, I don't know. There's no off season quite like trying to figure out what's going on at quarterback off season.
That's right.
Well, and what are the trickle-down effects of Nico leaving? Does anybody else leave? Obviously, the guy we're looking at right here was rumored back in December to look around because the uncertainty with Nico. Well, Nico is no longer here. So I mean,
it's Mike Matthews, not Hunter Barnes.
Where's Mike Matthews at? Where's Brazel at? Where's Wendell Moy at? I don't know. I can't answer any of those questions. I did talk to some people close to Mike late in the week. When it was apparent he was not going to be back, and they said Mike and Nico are separate entities. So that's how you need to look at it. Like that, just because one leaves doesn't mean both are going to leave. So,
well,
we'll see where all this goes. But I mean, you've got a window here that Josh Heupel and the leadership of this football team are going to have to be, dotting I's and crossing T's, Brent, making sure everybody's good. Because I mean, if they keep the core group here and they don't really lose very much, or at least don't lose any of the key guys, then Tennessee, with the right quarterback play, can still be very good.
Well, and I think the first thing you have to figure, if you're doing this in steps for me, and I could be completely wrong here, but one, you got to get with your current roster and figure out who's staying and make sure you're solid there and you're keeping intact and everybody's at the same place they were Saturday morning where they were all rallying together around one thing. Can you continue to keep that moving forward now that all these guys are getting their own individual phone calls and their agents are calling going, hey, I can get you here if you want to move. I think I can get you here if you want to move, and all that kind of stuff. So that's one. Two then becomes, okay, we got to quickly decide and to figure out what is realistic and what's not realistic in the portal. Is there is a multi-million-dollar quarterback that's going to be available in the portal that we can go get? And that's where we're going to take this NIL money we have now from Nico not being here? Or are we going to go get a, quote, cheaper quarterback, a guy who doesn't cost you as much money, and take some of the rest of that money and we're going to put it in a receiver? You're going to put it in, a position you might need if somebody else moves around. You're going to put more into, whatever to help this entire team, not just the quarterback position. The problem is, you have to make those decisions pretty rapidly. This is not okay, we're going to take some time here and figure it out. This is, you got to be really revved up and understanding where you think things are going to be Wednesday when the portal opens. And then you've got to decide what you can do and go from there. Because here's what we know about the portal, right, AP? Like, you can't wait until, okay, it opens Wednesday. We'll start to look and see who's available come Friday after some guys get in. Because a lot of guys already know where they're going or they have an idea of where they're going. You have got to be ready and hitting the ground running on Wednesday when this thing becomes official, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You've got to have a plan. You got to be ready to attack because this window's only open for so long, and you're kind of up against the clock here. Going back to you mentioned wide receiver and a couple other positions. Spring is over. Do we know where Tennessee stands at some of those positions at wide receiver, defensive tackle, defensive back? I mean, Austin, I think it's self-explanatory if you can, and a lot of that depends on the quarterback, as Brent just pointed out. You add a wide receiver, a defensive tackle especially. What I want to know is about defensive backfield. How's Tennessee leave spring feeling about cornerback?
I don't think they're going to add anybody. I mean, maybe I'll be surprised, and by Thursday or Friday they've got a cornerback in here for a visit, but it just doesn't feel like they're going to add anybody at that spot. I think they're definitely adding a receiver. I think they're definitely adding an interior defensive lineman. But here's the other thing. What happens if somebody leaves that you're not expecting to leave? Then it obviously would pivot you at maybe a position or two, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that will, let's say an offensive, let's say a guard left. Let's say Wyndham Wade. Then I'm not sure that Tennessee adds an offensive lineman there because I think they feel really good about the spring Sham has had and Jesse Perry, and pick up and roll on and play with the guys you got. But if they lost a corner, if they lost a linebacker, I think all those are positions that you're more likely to have to go to the portal and pick somebody up if you lost somebody. And I mean, again, no one knows at this point if they're losing anybody.
Well, and so, I mean, the feeling, just stay on the offensive line. If you lost a tackle versus a guard, you might be in a total different position, right? If you felt like, hey, maybe we got to go. I mean, here's my one takeaway, because we had this discussion on the podcast, and Austin and I debated it a little bit. Austin was like, they don't have a choice. They're taking a receiver. They got to take a receiver. And I'm like, well, Saturday, I was like, all right, Austin's 100% right. You got to take a receiver. They have to go find a receiver, because here's Brazel not out there performing and going through anything. Here's Braylon Staley not out there going through. Like, you got to go get somebody. And I don't know who that's going to be, Grant, but they have, of all the positions, regardless of what happens with the quarterback, of all the positions out there that you need help at besides quarterback, number one outside the quarterback is the wide receiver position, based on what I saw on Saturday. Just by who was walking around in street clothes.
Can we shout out Rodarius Jackson for a minute? Was that Rodarius Jackson with the one-handed catch at the corner there? He had a really good day, it felt like, and nobody ever is going to remember it happening at all. I mean, it was a glorified practice, but I think he did have a good day, and nobody's ever going to talk about it again.
No.
How many touchdowns?
Does anybody remember 10 plays from Saturday?
No.
I mean, everything was about. I mean, it was nothing. I mean, it was nobody's even going to. Other than one great one-handed catch, I don't think anybody else is going to talk a whole lot about anything they saw. And
how many touchdowns will Jack Van Dorselaer have this fall?
He won't have 3 in a game.
He won't have 3.
He won't have 3 in a game this fall. I don't think.
Another point, and I know we're going to transition towards the end here and talk a little hoops portal, get an update there. And this is, you can't answer this now because there's still just an unknown. You don't know about who's going to be added to this room. I get all that, but AP, I heard you say this in the 2-minute drill after the Orange and White game, and I couldn't agree more. The people that vote on SEC preseason picks and all that, and more like the media, like they're going to sit here and say, "Oh, you lost Dylan Sampson. Oh, you lost a wide receiver room. Oh, you lost Nico now. Psh, Tennessee 9th, Tennessee 8th, or whatever." Like, I completely agree with that. I think Tennessee's going to be like middle of the pack, voted on the SEC. But over there at FanDuel, Tennessee went from 9.5 right now to 8.5. This is still a very good roster. I did a hit with somebody on Sunday, and they said, "Is Tennessee punting on this season? I mean, is this going to be a 6-win season?" And it took everything in me not to just hysterically laugh. Like, I mean, what are you talking about? This roster is still pretty good. So how much does the one loss of your starting quarterback in Nico Iamaleava maybe change the win-loss, college football playoff expectations, all that conversation now, again, not knowing if you're, who you're going to add to that quarterback room?
Well, because a lot of those guys are looking at things from 1,000 feet, and they're not in the bubble, and they don't understand who's here and the young pieces and all those things. I mean, I think, there's just such an unknown, and there's even more of an unknown now. I mean, like there was unknown, and we've talked about that all spring, a wide receiver, and and corner and just certain spots that, Tennessee's going to have some nice young players, offensive line, that have not yet done it, or at least not yet done it together. And so now there's an even bigger unknown. And so, it's going to be interesting to kind of see how all this thing pieces together, because you're right. They're going to go in there and kind of fly under the radar, which isn't a bad thing. Like, they're going to be under the radar with a schedule that, is not like, it's got tough games on it, right? But they're all kind of separated. Syracuse now becomes a little bit more of a tighter game with a quarterback change in game one on a neutral site. You got your big three are all separated in each month. Georgia, September, Bama, October, Florida, November. Your road games are Starkville, who was terrible a year ago, and Kentucky, not a very good roster. And you have Oklahoma at home. So, again, the schedule is not overly difficult. And so there's still opportunity there if you can find the right quarterback to mesh with all these other pieces.
I think this is my biggest, once we get through the next week and a half here, who goes, who stays type deal. Okay, we get the I think it's 10 days as the portal length. Once you get that closed, I'm going to be really fascinated to see if this team, Grant, can carry the chip on their shoulder that they currently have. Very, very different circumstances. Okay. And so the 98 roster was really, really good, but there was a national narrative that Tennessee was going to take a real step back because Peyton Manning was gone. And Peyton Manning and Nico, I'm not comparing the two, but just follow me here for a second. There was a real narrative that Tennessee was, wow, they missed their window of opportunity to win because the best quarterback that's ever played is gone. That team channeled, and Austin, you've talked to a bunch of those guys. They didn't dislike Peyton, but they were ready to prove to themselves and to prove to everybody that the program was a lot more than a quarterback from New Orleans, Louisiana. And that was their motivating factor. Now, it was a longer motivation because it was January till the start of the season. Can this team rally and continue to hold this edge about them that they're going to prove to everybody that they're exactly what Josh Heupel said on Saturday, and that is they're built to win. They got enough parts to go win, Grant. Can they continue to collectively hold that edge in a world where it's more individualized in a team sport than it's ever been?
Can they do it when the adrenaline wears off? Can they still have that chip on their shoulder? You look at last year, and I'm not trying to trash Nico because he's on the way out, but Tennessee's defense was really, really good. Tennessee's defense was the biggest reason Tennessee was in the college football playoff. The run game, Dylan Sampson, how productive he was. They got shut out in the first half of 3 straight games early in the season. Like that, they had a lot of stuff to overcome offensively. So I think my question in terms of the expectations with and without Nico, between 24 and 25 is what's the defense look like, and how does the 25 defense compare to the 24 defense, and how does the run game compare in 25 without Sampson to 24 with Sampson? Like Josh's offenses have typically had really good run game production, regardless of who the running back is. If it's one guy, if it's 3 guys. So what do they look like in those areas? To me, is just as big a question as what happens with quarterback now that Nico's gone.
I don't know what Grant and Eric heard, but all I heard was Tennessee's win the national title.
I heard that too.
That's basically what I heard from Hubs.
98 Vols, handshake emoji, 25 Vols.
Feels like 98.
That was the point I was making, right, AP? That's exactly what I was trying to say.
I heard him say,
thanks.
Nico is Peyton Manning.
I appreciate y'all really listening and my diatribe there.
Who's Al Wilson? Howard T.T. Lander?
It was wild seeing those two on the same field the other day, let me tell you.
I tell you what, I asked Al, standing there talking to him, and we did a deal on the game broadcast, but I asked him about, and he said, the thing is, somebody on this team, a group of guys on this team, have to be willing to be uncomfortable. They got to be willing to be the guy that is going to make, they're going to stand on their own and hold everybody accountable when a group of people don't want to do what needs to be done. They want to cut a corner that day, or they want to blow something off, or not do something at full tilt? Who is going to be that guy? And I think that's the question. I think that was the question before Nico on offense, Austin. Who's going to be the guy that stands up and says, we're not cutting any corners today on anything we're doing. Dylan Sampson was there a year ago. Kitzelman wants to be there, but Kitzelman's not going to be out there doing those things because so who is going to be the guy that makes sure that everything that's being done this summer is at 100% the effort it needs to be at for this team to be at their best?
I still think it's Kitzelman. I think he's going to be there. I mean, if you were out at practice this spring, it was I couldn't really record tight ends because Kitzelman is like critiquing every rep like a coach, and he's positive. If it's warranted, it's the word shh and it ends in E. If it's bad, and like I think that's who he is. I think he's going to be out there. I think it has to be him. I think he's the alpha in the room offensively now. And unless one of these quarterbacks, steps up, because let's face it. Quarterbacks are looked to lead. That wasn't Nico's forte. That just wasn't his personality. He was trying to get there, but it's not his personality. I think it's got to be Kitzelman. I'm just not sure anybody else on offense can do it. Does Lance Hurd have it in him? Maybe Sam Pendleton, but he's still new to the room.
It's tough when you're new.
Yeah, to me, it's hard for a quarterback to have that with no games of experience or 2 mop-up games of experience. It's hard for that guy to become the alpha when he hasn't bled on the field, for lack of a better phrase, Grant. That's hard for that guy to be that. I'm not saying an Al Wilson leader, but to be a true alpha. I think that's hard for these 2 young quarterbacks to be able to be this summer. I really do. I don't think that they're disrespected. I think their teammates have respect for them, but man, they don't have a lot of tread on that. They don't have a lot of wear on that tire for those words to maybe resonate the way it would, somebody who's played a good amount of football.
Yeah, and you got to be yourself. If you're forcing it, your teammates are going to see that, and it's going to be hard to follow. I think Kitzelman's a good place to start, and then you go from there. Hubbard, you mentioned what was it? Comfortable being uncomfortable. How was the sideline Saturday? Can we get a weather report? Hubbard in the elements.
I was overdressed, layered up, so it was a good day for me.
It was a good It was a good simulation when you factor in. Hubbard doesn't like the cold, and it wasn't exactly a warm spring day out there. So I thought it was a good simulation to get him in game shape for the fall. I liked it.
How quickly is the Eskimo suit coming out?
Well,
fall 2025. We're talking September.
Depends on where the winds are. If the winds are out of the north, when it gets into that stadium, it gets ugly. That I might or might not have had base layer on underneath what I was wearing, as well as some winter socks. I did not put on a toboggan. I'm very proud of myself. I did not wear a toboggan at any point. And at one point, Eric, I was overdressed. I toyed with taking off the jacket, but I just decided to ride it out, and I never got chilly, which was good. And it's very easy for me to get chilly. I mowed my yard on Sunday in my hoodie and was very comfortable doing so. As it was 70 degrees outside.
I look forward to texting you from a balmy press box in Lexington, Kentucky. There,
I've got to find out if dress code wise hoodies are allowed, because I will rock some kind of hoodie on the sideline if I'm allowed to do so. We got to work through the whole dress code deal,
Hubbard,
but it was all right.
The biggest problem of everything you just said is you was mowing on Sunday. You can't mow on Sunday.
Ox was in
my papa would be very disappointed.
Yeah. So my generations of my family, you got to keep the peace on Sunday.
I understand.
There's no mowing.
Ox was a little bit in the ditch. Plus, it's not. Does anybody clean their house on Sunday? If you clean your house on Sunday, that's the same deal, right? It's just the only difference is when you mow outside, somebody from the church drives by and sees you mowing, or some older person drives by and go, that heathen's out there mowing on a Sunday afternoon.
All I got to say is there's a baseball game at 1:00 on Easter Sunday. So raise your hand if you're thrilled about that.
There's an elite.
Don't get me wrong. I love my job. I'm blessed to do it. I just want to put that out there.
There was an Elite Eight game on Easter Sunday, 2024, and somebody's child was singing a solo at church, and I was the only member of the family that wasn't there. Deadbeat dad.
Rowan is coming on Sunday, Kane.
I am under the impression that it's going to be early, and that would be this week. So
Rowan is coming on Sunday. Matt Ray, like the call to the bullpen. Give me Matt.
I think Grant's going to be the first reliever out of the pen. So
yeah, Grant's at LSU in a week.
He's going to do so well.
It's a tough place to start. That's a Braves bullpen move right there.
Speaking of, nope, not even speaking of that. Let's transition the last 2 or 3 minutes of the show. Grant, speaking of Grant, there we go. Give me an update on Tennessee in the basketball portal. A lot of talk about it last week. Obviously, nobody's even thought about that since Thursday. But where is Tennessee with LMU transfer Elijah Freeman? Where is Tennessee with Rodney Rice? Villanova very much in there. Rice was on campus this past weekend. Where is Tennessee in the transfer portal?
All eyes are kind of on Rodney Rice right now. Jacoby Gillespie's teammate at Maryland. I think he averaged close to 14 a game, shot it pretty well from 3. Big time scorer in the portal, big time guard in the portal, one of the biggest ones left on the board. Obviously, one of the biggest targets left for Tennessee right now. He was here for an official visit over the weekend. He was here with Jacoby. Obviously, Tennessee is selling that very, very hard. Jacoby's selling that very hard, wanting to play together again. They're roommates at Maryland. I think that's how close they are. I think they both want to play together again. It's just going to be a matter of Villanova is another one that's after him. He came to Tennessee from Villanova visit-wise, and I think Villanova is going to offer him a pretty big amount of money. I don't know how that compares to others and maybe what other schools are going to offer him, but I think for Tennessee, the question is going to be how badly does he want to play with Jacoby versus is he just going to go to the highest bidder?
Well,
and that's what you're trying to figure out.
I think the other wrinkle here, Grant, is the desire to be in a winning program that, he just got to the Sweet 16.
Right.
And from all accounts, he liked that run. And Tennessee sitting there having been to 2 straight Elite Eights and Rick Barnes with all the success he has. I think that's what you're looking at here is the desire to play with Jacoby, the desire to be in a winning environment versus the money and playing for your old coach.
And I think you could sell him on Jordan Gainey, too. You look at – because Rodney's a guy that's got 2 years left. Look at Jordan Gainey and what he was when he got here versus what he was, at the end of his senior year. Drastically different basketball player, way better. The player development process for him over those 2 years was huge. So what Tennessee has that nobody else has, obviously, is Jacoby Gillespie and that relationship that they can sell. Nobody else has that. And Tennessee is – trying to, like he told Rob after the visit, like they're trying to push for a Final Four. They've been to 2 straight Elite Eights. They're trying to kind of get over that hump, and they need that kind of guy like Rodney Rice to team up with Jacoby Gillespie. Elijah Freeman, it's a little bit more of an interesting prospect recruitment. I mean, he was a Division II guy at Lincoln Memorial. He's 6'8". He was a freshman. I think he averaged like 19, 9, and 3. So he put up huge numbers. The shooting percentages from the field and from 3 were high. But it's a Division II basketball, and it's trying to figure out how it's going to translate. Now, he got some interest from Kentucky early on. He's been to Indiana for a visit. He was just at Auburn over the weekend. Rick Barnes and some members of his staff went to meet with him Friday morning before he went on that Auburn visit. So he's been a guy that's been rumored and talked about with Tennessee for a while now, and Tennessee is still after him. I think he told our Auburn side after that Auburn visit that he's planning a Tennessee official visit and that his timeline is kind of, I think he said by the end of next week. So maybe it's the next couple of weeks thing. But it's Auburn. It feels like it's Tennessee. It's Indiana. It feels like those are the 3 teams in the mix right now. But for Tennessee, it's been kind of like systematic, like here, this guy, and this guy. Like they focused on one guy and then moved on. It's Rodney Rice right now. And obviously there's some focus on Elijah Freeman too, but it feels like we're just kind of waiting on a Rodney Rice decision and then go from there.
Grant, I understand they're late bloomers in all sports, but excuse me, how did Freeman end up at LMU? I mean, how does a guy like that's getting interest from Tennessee and Kentucky and Auburn, I mean, the cream of the crop here, go to college in the Division II realm?
I love the Godfather's Pizza across from LMU University.
There's a gas station Subway as well.
I was really interested in the Abe Lincoln Museum up there.
Well, the best part about that recruitment is that grainy image of Rick Barnes holding court at a Cracker Barrel with Elijah Freeman that surfaced on Friday morning.
And Middlesboro.
in Middlesbrough. It looks like a picture of Bigfoot walking across the forest. You can't hardly see what's going on there, but you can just kind of make out some images. I don't know how he slipped through the cracks. I mean, if Tennessee wasn't at Peach Jam 2021 watching a Brandon Miller basketball game, they never see Zakai Ziegler, and I don't know where Zakai Ziegler ends up playing if he doesn't get a Tennessee offer. And if Rick doesn't see Grant Williams at a similar event, I can't remember if it's Peach Jam or wherever, like he was probably going to Ivy League basketball, and he's an All-American and a two-time SEC Player of the Year, turns into an NBA draft pick. So basketball, it feels like there are more of those guys that just because there are so many basketball players that and roster sizes are so limited that they fall through the cracks. And for whatever reason, I mean, he's 6'8", he's got the build for it to be a Division I prospect and play well at the Division I level. But it's going to be very interesting to see where he ends up, and B, what it looks like next season versus what he looks like down the road in terms of being a multi-year guy, somebody that you can develop over time.
Grant, is he in a situation where?
See, I told you.
Yeah,
I told you.
Was he having Mama's pancake breakfast or Uncle Herschel's? That's the biggest question of the day.
How many golf tees did Elijah leave on the pegboard? That's the question.
Good question.
Who won the checker game outside when they were waiting for their table? Okay, go ahead.
Is this a situation where there's a little bit of wait and see for Elijah on what all options are out there, because you still got Nate Ament to make a decision and some other portal guys out there going through. I don't want to characterize him as a second tier guy, because that's not the case. But do you think he's a little bit later in the process with these teams because these teams are involved in other players?
Well, when the infamous Cracker Barrel picture surfaced on Friday, I think some people were wondering, does this mean Rick has an answer from Nate Ament and he's moving on? I don't think that's the case at all. I think Tennessee's still all in on that recruitment until they get an answer. I think Tennessee is casting its net and recruiting all these guys that they're interested in, regardless of decisions from other guys. I don't know Nate's timeline. It was to kind of get through that Nike Hoop Summit in Oregon over the weekend, which is now passed, and we'll see what happens from there. But as far as I know, Tennessee's still all in there. Maybe I'm naive and crazy. I would go after both of those players. You got spots to fill. If you could get both of them, try to go get both of them. I think Elijah Freeman might be more of a developmental prospect just because of where he's coming from. So I don't think that changes anything. I think they're still all in on the Nate Ament stuff, and we'll wait on the decision there. And Rodney Rice as well, kind of waiting on the decision from him. Until then, you're just kind of continuing to cast your net.
Imagine going from the Frosty Freeze to the nutrition thing at
UT. You're saying Elijah doesn't have a big nutrition bar every day at Lincoln Memorial?
Harrogate, I would say not.
You think Rick pulled up a map and was like, we've got 7 Cracker Barrels in the greater Knoxville area.
Let's go to the one in Millsboro. He just want to go through the tunnel.
All right, a lot going on right now. For the first time in, 4 off seasons, we are going to have conversations about who the starting quarterback at the University of Tennessee is going to be. It's going to be a day-by-day conversation. Who's Tennessee going to add to this room? The transfer portal officially opens on Wednesday. Fall camp will be right around the corner where they'll go compete, but a lot of conversation now with the exit of Nico Iamaleava and potentially a course correction in terms of who was the original poster child in name, image, and likeness, and now kind of the big first name where the team's just like, no, we're good. We're going to move on. So the conversation continues, Brent Hubbs. That conversation, baseball happening right now, basketball portal. No better time literally than right now this offseason. Better gear up and join us at Volquest.com to stay up to date, because it's going to be fast moving and a lot of info out there.
Yep, certainly have sent the caffeine over to Austin Price by the case, because you're going to be working the phones, and they're going to be all hours of the night, and there's going to be every rumor under the sun to chase as we move into what is a new age coaching search type world, it feels like, because there's going to be everything under the sun to discuss, lots of things to chase down, and lots of pulling out of the hair of trying to figure it out. And we'll do everything we can to bring you the very latest that we have and the most accurate stuff that you have, because there's going to be a lot to sort through in terms of rumblings that are out there, because what we know is when you get into this world that involves agents, a lot of people are candidates for a lot of places, much like a coaching search. This is on a different scale with young people. So there's going to be a lot of stuff to filter through, and we're going to do our best to filter through all of it for you.
Yeah, you're going to have to figure out what's real and what's not. There's going to be a lot of chatter about a lot of different guys. The phone never stops buzzing. I've had 6,000 text messages during this podcast. So while the people on YouTube comment that I'm playing Candy Crush a lot of times, I'm not. I'm actually doing my job. I just don't have time to sit here and stare at the screen like, the Speaker of the House during the State of the Union when I'm not talking. So a lot of times I'm just I see those comments on YouTube. Austin's playing Candy Crush or whatever.
It's not Candy Crush. He's going through Instagram Reels and sending them out to everybody. So that's what he's doing. It's not Candy Crush.
Or he's texting you with various topics and various things on his brain, Eric.
Or I'm telling Eric, hurry up, speed it up. Let's go.
It was me that actually texted him during this recording today.
He's Googling why you shouldn't mow on Sundays.
Oh, I should have never said that. It's also the reason why the reason why my internet went out in while you were talking about basketball.
It's the noise. It's the noise. It's when Andy couldn't get any sleep because Gomer's fixing up every car in Mayberry.
I shouldn't be in a hurry on a Sunday like Mr. Tucker, right?
That's right. What's your hurry?
All right, we're going to lay this point here.
Matt Ray is one of the two old ladies that talk every week during that episode.
I bet their feet going to sleep.
Yeah, that's Matt Ray.
For Brent Hubbs, Austin Price, Grant Ramey, I'm Eric Kane. A lot happening right now. Come join us. Come talk with us on the Journalist Quarters. There's a lot to discuss, as we just pointed out. Nico situation, spring practice come and gone, basketball, all that and more. Come hang out with us on the Journalist Quarters. Big thank you for joining us here on the Volquest podcast. We'll be back on Thursday. Go ahead and get those questions and all that and more. This is Volquest.com.